Once upon a time in the bustling streets of New York, two hip-hop titans, Ja Rule and 50 Cent, were locked in a fierce rivalry that had captivated the music world. Their feud was legendary, filled with diss tracks and social media jabs. But behind the scenes, the stakes were even higher than anyone imagined. One evening, Ja Rule sat down with a trusted friend in a dimly lit studio, reflecting on the turbulent years. As the beats from his latest track reverberated in the background, he felt the weight of the battles he'd fought, not just against 50 Cent, but also with the shadows of the industry itself. "Man, you won't believe what went down back in the day," Ja began, his voice low. He recounted a meeting with Eminem, who was at the peak of his power. At the time, he had a unique opportunity to collaborate with the legendary rapper, but the conditions were shocking. "Eminem asked me to consider working with him on a project," Ja continued, shaking his head in disbelief. "But he made it clear that to seal the deal, I had to, get down on him." I was stunned. His friend raised an eyebrow. "Wait, are you serious? Like, literally?" "Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I thought it was a joke at first. Here I was, thinking about making moves, and he throws that at me. It felt like a test I wasn't ready for," Ja explained, a mix of incredulity and anger surfacing in his voice. Ja Rule had always respected Eminem's artistry, but this request felt like a betrayal. The streets had taught him to be tough, to stand his ground, and he wasn't about to compromise his integrity. So he declined the offer, knowing it would come with consequences. "I walked away from that meeting feeling more isolated than ever," he said, staring out into the distance. "But it was also a turning point. I realized I had to define my own path, regardless of what the industry wanted from me." As Ja continued to narrate the highs and lows of his career, he reflected on the impact of that decision. It had only fueled the fire of his rivalry with 50 Cent. The world saw the conflict as a battle of egos, but Ja knew it ran deeper, a clash of values and authenticity. In the years that followed, Ja Rule found his footing again. He released hits that reminded the world of his talent, carving out a space that was uniquely his own. Meanwhile, the feud with 50 Cent escalated, both men trading barbs in interviews and through music. But Ja held on to the lessons learned from that fateful meeting. As he wrapped up his story, Ja Rule smiled, knowing that sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most significant growth. The music industry might have its own rules, but he would always play by his own. In a world of superficiality, he vowed to stay true to himself no matter the cost. And that, in the end, was a victory all its own. He decided to host a listening party for his upcoming album, inviting a mix of industry insiders, friends, and even a few adversaries. The night of the event, the atmosphere in the venue was electric. Friends and fans mingled, drinks flowed, and the air was filled with anticipation. As Ja took the stage, the room fell silent. He looked out at the crowd, feeling a mix of nerves and determination. "Tonight isn't just about music," he began, his voice steady. "It's about honesty, resilience, and reclaiming my story." He spoke candidly about his experiences, sharing the details of that shocking meeting with Eminem. He could see the audience's reactions, a mix of shock and intrigue. As he recounted the moment he had chosen to walk away, he felt a surge of empowerment. He wasn't just a rapper, he was a man who stood for his values. "I chose my integrity over a deal," Ja declared, "and I want all of you to know that you can do the same. The industry can try to mold you, but you have to stay true to who you are." As he played tracks from his new album, the beats reverberated through the crowd, resonating with the themes of struggle and triumph. The audience was captivated, cheering him on as he poured his heart into every song. The energy was palpable, a collective reminder of why they all fell in love with hip-hop in the first place. After the performance, a familiar face emerged from the crowd. It was Fat Joe, an old friend and fellow artist. They embraced, and Joe, with a smirk, said, "You've always had that fire in you. It's good to see you owning your story." Ja smiled back, grateful for the support. "It feels good, man. I'm done letting the past define me." Just then, the door swung open and 50 Cent entered, accompanied by his crew. The room went tense. Everyone knew the history between them, and whispers filled the air. But instead of the expected confrontation, 50 approached Ja with a nod. "Congrats on the new album, man," he said, extending a hand. "It's good to see you back on your feet." Ja hesitated, then shook his hand. "Thanks. It's about time we stop letting the industry dictate our narrative." 50 nodded, a hint of respect in his eyes. "Yeah, maybe it's time we focus on what really matters. Our music." The two exchanged a few more words, realizing that both had fought their own battles in a cutthroat industry. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a step toward mutual respect. As the night wore on, the energy shifted. Conversations flowed, laughter echoed, and old grudges began to fade in the background. Ja Rule took a moment to appreciate the camaraderie around him, the artists, the fans, and even the rivals, united by their shared love for music. Later that evening, as Ja looked out over the crowd, he felt a sense of closure. The rivalries that had once consumed him were now part of his story, but they didn't define him. He was ready to forge new paths and collaborations, focusing on the future rather than the past. As the party came to a close, Ja Rule knew that he had taken control of his narrative. The music industry would always have its challenges, but he was armed with the knowledge that authenticity would always shine through. In a world where many felt pressured to conform, he was determined to remain a beacon of individuality and strength, inspiring others to do the same. And as the final notes of his album played, he realized that sometimes the hardest battles lead to the most beautiful victories.